Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, I'm Serein, and this is my motherhood and lifestyle channel called More Serein. Today's video is going to be a detailed review of the Elvie Breast Pump. I did a review on my main breast pump that I got through my insurance, the Spectra S1, which I will link in the cards as well as in the description box if you're curious about that. But I did also purchase the very luxurious, very expensive Elvie pump, and these are my thoughts on the pump. I should probably film a whole breastfeeding journey video for you guys, but I had a very intense labor and delivery story, which is available on my channel. I will link it in the cards as well as in the description box if you're curious. But when I came home and I was basically like, they just let you come home, leave from the hospital with a newborn baby that you're in charge of. I did have 2 different lactation consultants at the hospital. I also did a ton of research about breastfeeding before I delivered, and then I continued to do research. I did not have the easiest time emotionally with breastfeeding. I actually had a lot of trauma I was dealing with immediately after delivery, which I think affected my ability to mentally deal with breastfeeding. I also delivered in the age of COVID, so I didn't have friends around to help me who had gone through this. They were only able to help me through texting and FaceTime. I was so miserable with the first few days of breastfeeding that I thought purchasing the Elvie pumps would help my situation based on the reviews, based on the advertising and all the stuff. So I did purchase the full set of the Elvie, which comes with 2 pumps so that you can pump at the same time. You can also purchase the single pump so that you pump 1 boob at a time, but I thought that that was silly, and part of the reason I hated pumping so much was because of how constricted and confined I felt while pumping. I wanted a pump that gave me more freedom, and I did have the Spectra S1, which is a battery operated one, so you can take it away from the outlet. However, it still has the traditional flanges, which means it's like sticking out. You still need to wear a pump bra so that you don't have to hold them to your boobs. The idea of the Elvie one is that you could be completely hands-free and cordless. And this ran about $600, and after tax, it was almost $700 for us here in California. The idea of this is that you charge them and they go in your bra, and they are completely hands-free, and that they would pump. So a lot of my issues with this is that immediately, just know, and I knew this off the bat, the battery life on this is maybe 2 full pumps. I would pump 20 to 25 minutes per session, so I would maybe get 2 full pumps before having to charge. But I knew this when I bought it, and I wasn't planning on leaving the house too much anyways, so I was okay with that. I would just charge it after 2 pumps. That can be an issue for you if you're buying this in order to travel or go back to work. You will need to have an outlet to charge them in between pumps. The other thing about this is that this is not conducive to a lot of bras. I have a lot of like thinner sports bras that are great for breastfeeding and actually sold for breastfeeding that just kind of pull down, but they aren't structured enough to hold these in place. That's a big key, is that you need a bra that holds the pump in place. And the pump itself, while lightweight, is a lot heavier in a bra. The bras that I ended up having the best success with, the Elvie pumps, are from Amazon. They're quite affordable. I think it was like 20 bucks or 30 bucks for 3 bras, a pack of 3. And I will link that in the description box for you guys if you're curious which bra I went with. And it was recommended by my friend Eleanor from Spread Fashion on Instagram. She recommended those bras to me because she exclusively pumped using the Elvie pumps. A biggest thing is if you are waiting for your milk to come in, or if you are trying to build up your milk supply, do not use the Elvie. The Elvie is for convenience and not going to be enough to build up your supply. I used my Spectra to build up my supply, and whenever I wanted a really good solid pump session. Now, I was able to get relatively the same amount of milk output as my Spectra once my milk was in and once I built up a supply. However, I did notice there were times when I did use the Elvie exclusively that I was slowly noticing that my milk supply was lowering. I wasn't getting quite as much of a pump as I know I should have been getting when I was using exclusively the Elvie. So if you have a supply issue, waiting for your milk to come in or hoping to build up a supply, I don't recommend this pump. This is something as a secondary pump for convenience. The other thing is that when these are in your bra, you don't have a lot of mobility. You're not going to want to bend over, you're not going to want to do a lot of movement. And even when I knew that going into this, because I read the reviews, I read hundreds of reviews before buying this because it's really expensive. I knew that, like, you'll want to squat down to pick anything up, you'll want to be careful with your movements, but this was nice because I could go upstairs and downstairs with the pump, and it was easier for me to be at the computer with these in my bra versus the Spectra with the flanges coming out. However, you're still not going to be fully mobile with these. The more you move around, the more likely these pumps are going to go out of place. You're going to have a lot of spillage, leakage, or they're going to stop working because they're no longer suctioned to your nipples correctly. So the placement of these are really important, and then keeping them in place is really important, which is why having a secure bra is so important. You're going to want a nursing bra so that you can pull it down, stick them in, and pull it back up. And the ones that I found that were the most beneficial are the ones that are a little bit more structure and that was able to tighten up the straps. These also do come with strap adjustments, but you want a bra that's going to really be able to tighten it and keep it secure. Even with that situation, you're going to want to stay pretty still. So if you're at your desk, this is great. If you're watching TV and sitting on the couch, this is great. I even put these in and did a really, really gentle walk around the neighborhood, and that was great. Good, because a lot of times, like our schedule, when we were building up the schedule, I was trying to keep my pump schedule on schedule, but suddenly it was time for Lillian we need to go walk her outside because the weather's good and she's getting fussy, and this will help. So this was great to be able to just stick them in there and go for a light walk. No hills, no like power walking, nothing like that, but just putting them in and being able to get outside. I would say my biggest struggle, and I think for anybody, is going to be the placement of the flanges. So this is what the pump looks like, and you're gonna pull it out and it's gonna look like this. You're going to need to make sure you're placing your nipples perfectly in between the two black lines on the bottom and centered to this black line here. So in order to do that, you're typically lifting the boob and putting this on. Your view is obstructed by this thing here. In order to get the hang of it, you almost have to like be completely bare-breasted and look in the mirror to make sure from the side that you're getting this in the right place. And then you have to hold it in place and then pop this thing on and then pull on your bra, or hold it there, which I did the first few times to get the sensation and the placement correct. So that's just kind of like a huge design flaw, I feel like, is that they don't make it super easy. And if you're in a hurry or you're rushing, it's very easy to misalign your nipple and therefore not get a correct pump session, which can be very frustrating. I didn't have a huge issue with lining it up after a while, but every so often I would misalign it and then I would start the pump and it would really hurt, or I would feel like nothing was happening and then I would have to take everything out and start over. So that's really frustrating. I didn't like that. I also don't like that there aren't that many options in terms of the sensation. Like, you have the express mode and then you have the pumping mode, and that's it. The express mode is there to kind of get your milk flowing, and then when it senses that, it just switches over, or it switches over after about a minute. Strength of the suction I felt was pretty comparable to my Spectra. However, I just think the flanges, the placement is so finicky that if you don't perfectly place the flanges on your nipple, you're not going to get a full pump session, and sometimes it's going to hurt, or sometimes you're going to have leakage, and it happens more often than not compared to the Spectra or some of the other traditional pumps out there. So when you buy the set that I bought, and I'll link that. I bought mine through Bye Bye Baby so that we could do curbside pickup because I wanted it like ASAP. You get 2 of the like main devices. You get 4 different flanges, so 2 pairs of flanges. This one is the square one, and then you can get the one that has the triangle, and it just depends on the shape of your nipples which ones fit you better. I found the square one fit mine better. And then you get 2 of the catchers. You can also purchase additional catchers or storage containers, and then you can also purchase different sizes of the flanges. I think there's also some adapters out there that I've heard different brands make different adapters for the Elvie. Overall, do I recommend the Elvie? It really depends. I think it depends on the person, the lifestyle, and your goals. If you are out there to try and get as much milk as possible and build up a supply, I don't recommend the Elvie. I think that they're really expensive and you're not going to be able to build up a supply with this, and you're also not going to be able to like maintain your supply if this is the only thing you're using. If you're exclusively pumping, I don't recommend only using the Elvie. I think you need 2 pumps. If you are purchasing the Elvie as kind of like a backup pump or a convenience pump, then yes, I recommend the Elvie for that. But I found that when I was pumping with the Elvie, I still needed to pump with the Spectra. If you are someone who only has the budget for 1 pump, this is not the pump for you. I definitely think you need a traditional pump in that sense. If you're exclusively pumping, I don't think this should be your only pump either. I think you need a traditional pump to build up your supply, to get your milk up, and then you can use the Elvie for convenience. If you're going back to work, this is better for work. It's convenient for work. But if you are exclusively pumping, I still think you need another pump. If you're not exclusively pumping and you just need to pump occasionally, then this could be your only pump if you're still predominantly breastfeeding and nursing. So if my baby is nursing and I just feel engorged for whatever reason, she's sleeping through a nursing session and I want to keep up my supply, this would be good for that. Like I said, it's good for convenience, it's good to have, but it's a very expensive convenience and it's a very expensive good to have product. And if I could do it all over again, I would probably watch this video for myself and save my money and not purchase the Elvie and just muscle through the pumping with the Spectra until I could be exclusively nursing or hand expressing. I ended up hand expressing more than I pumped. Yeah, it really depends on your budget. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it made my life that much better or easier, and it didn't get me to pump longer or produce more milk. So it's one of those things where it's a luxurious convenience, not a necessity, and not something that was worth the money at the end for me. That's just me being super, super honest about this. Now, if I had the extra money and I had these, I would definitely use them. I did use them. I just wish I had allocated the money for something else because they're really expensive, or that I bought them secondhand, but I was in such a bad mental state, I just bought these. I'm actually gonna sell these, I think, because you can buy the replacement parts, and what's really expensive is the actual device, this part of it, the component. I didn't like the app. I used the app to kind of just keep track of the time to know how long I had been pumping, but the app doesn't gauge the actual amount of milk that is pumping, so you don't actually get to see what the milk is looking like unless you take your bra off and hold this in place and look at it. Ideally, the app was going to be able to tell me how much milk I was producing so I could turn it off when I got to that point or when I felt like I was ready to. But in reality, I just kept this on for 20-25 minutes, turned it off, and then took it off to see how much milk I had. And sometimes it was frustrating because I realized I was leaking. The pump is good to have on hand if someone gifted this to you or you have it in your budget and you want something for convenience for going back to work or for maybe even on a date night, or I don't know, I don't feel like anyone's going out that long anymore because we're still staying home. But it is a convenient item to have. It's very faulty. There's just a lot of ways for user error to happen. The app is faulty. The product itself is a good concept, but there's just a lot of issues with it still. If you are looking for a second pump that is completely cordless and hands-free, and you know that you're not going to be able to get the same amount of milk consistently through this pump, you know that the battery life is only really good for 1 to 2 pumps depending on how long you pump for and at what level you pump at, you know that there's not a lot of different express options. You also know that this could potentially leak, and even though it's cordless and hands-free, you're not going to be fully mobile with this on. Like, you're still going to have to sit relatively still and walk relatively evenly, and you still want this for convenience. Maybe you're pumping at your desk, maybe you're pumping at night watching TV and you just don't want a ton of cords, or you want to be able to go on a light walk, or you want to be able to pump in the car. Those options are reasons to maybe get this pump. But is it necessary? Absolutely not. Is this going to help you in your breastfeeding journey? Not necessarily. It could actually be very frustrating, especially if you're someone having supply issues. However, as a second pump, I don't regret having it because it did make my life a little bit easier. I kind of regret spending so much money because I didn't end up pumping for a very long time. I ended up hand expressing for the rest of my breastfeeding journey and nursing. I'm not saying I wouldn't buy this again, but I'm not saying that I would either. Does that make sense? So if you're looking at this and you're like having sticker price shock and you're a little scared about investing in it, I would say hold off. Wait until you have your baby and see about your breastfeeding journey, because pumping might not be your thing. It wasn't mine. There's hand expression, there's Haka pumps, there's manual pumps, or you might be able to nurse exclusively and you won't even need a pump. So I would hold off on it if you have any doubts. If you're someone who knows you're gonna have to pump and you are going to make it your mission to pump, then this is going to make life a little easier, but this is only going to be making your life easier if it's your second pump. You're still gonna want a traditional pump to build up your supply and to maintain your milk production. So those are my thoughts. I wish I had a video that I'm making right now when I was looking at these. I hope it was helpful for you if you're looking at the Elvie pump. If you're curious about the Spectra S1, I do have that video up already. And if you are curious about anything about motherhood or lifestyle, make sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up for new videos here every Wednesdays and Saturdays at noon PST. Until next time, have a wonderful, beautiful rest of your day. Bye!